So let's go ahead and get started on Girl Scout traditions. So to start off, I have here a list of what we're going to cover tonight. So the first thing we're going to ask is, what are traditions? Then we're going to go into a little of the Girl Scout history and a little about Juliette Gordon Low herself. When I initially thought of this topic, I knew it was going to be a great topic. I know it's something that's near and dear to a lot of our hearts. I know it's something that a lot of people want to know more about. I did not realize that there would be so much to cover, but that's okay. So what tonight's webinar is going to be is going through a lot of different topics and items that have to do with Girl Scout traditions. I'm going to try and get through as many of them as I can. So you have a list of them here, but that's not comprehensive. So I also want to have some time to show you some videos, a song, a grace, at least one of each, so that you also get a chance to see those. And then once we go through all of that, the last thing we'll touch on is how to keep the traditions alive, because we want to keep passing those traditions on generation to generation. All right, so I did also want to let you know before we get started into everything is that, believe it or not, there is such a thing as a Girl Scout glossary. Because this organization has been around for such a long time, there has naturally evolved a certain vocabulary specific to Girl Scouting. So I list some of the most common Girl Scout jargon, if you will, here in the webinar, but there is so much more. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. If you go on the internet, you look up Girl Scout glossary, you'll get a bunch of responses in alphabetical order. I just made some copies of the letter A, the letter B, the letter C, so you can kind of get a glimpse of it here on your slide. Again, this webinar is going to touch on a very wide range of items related to Girl Scout traditions. If you've been in Girl Scouts for a while, you may already know most of these, but I did try to interject some brief historical facts and trivia here and there, so you learn something new as well. If you are newer to Girl Scouts, please do not worry. While there is going to be a lot to know about Girl Scouting, knowing it all is not necessary to have a good experience with your girls. Most of what you'll see in this webinar will basically add depth and meaning to our everyday Girl Scout experience, but not necessary to begin your troop meetings. So just don't worry about it. Just take it in stride, absorb what you can. You will learn these as you go from meeting to meeting, month to month, I promise. I Girl Scout promise. All right, so that's the glossary. Next is the question, what are traditions? We hear that word a lot in Girl Scouts. I consider myself, well, I like to consider myself a Girl Scout nerd. I love everything about Girl Scouting, especially the history, the trivia, the tradition. So this was an exciting thing to put together for me. So tradition basically is defined as a transmission of customs or beliefs from generation to generation. At the very core, tradition is just an existing knowledge base. It keeps growing and changing over many years. It contributes a sense of comfort and belonging to a group. It helps form the foundation and the structure of the group. It reinforces our values, provides a forum where we can showcase and celebrate what matters to us. So Girl Scouting definitely has a rich history that has developed, and it will continue to develop. Girl Scouting's been around for over 104 years. A lot of things have changed. A lot of things will continue to change. We know that. But we want to take some time to explore and touch on the traditions that make it what it is today. So before we can get into specifics of tradition, we need to know a little bit about Girl Scout history. Now, those of you that know me know that I like to study Girl Scout history a little bit. So I've found out there is a lot of Girl Scout history out there to learn. I cannot know all of it, but if we were to do a webinar just on Girl Scout history, we would only still be touching on some of it. There's a lot out there. So I have a couple of key notes here. So of course, the founder of Juliette Gordon Low or otherwise known as Daisy to her friends and family. She's founded Girl Scouting in the USA, and that was after being abroad and running into Lord Robert Baden-Powell, who was the founder of Boy Scouts of America. She found out that he was starting an educational youth organization for boys, and it was focused on the outdoors and education. She found out about that. She was interested in doing the same for girls. So in 1912, during the mid-progressive era in America, when in fact women did not have the right to vote at that time, but it was during that time in Savannah, Georgia, where Juliet Gordon Low began Girl Scouts with 18 girls. Since the beginning, Girl Scouting has been inclusive. It's been focused on the outdoors, on self-reliance, and service to the community was also emphasized in Girl Scouting. In fact, early Girl Scouts were playing basketball, hiking, and camping, and that was pretty revolutionary for girls to do during that time period. It was also clear that she intended this experience to be girl-led, and we'll talk more about that later. Currently, just so you guys have a little reference point, there is about 3 million Girl Scouts in 92 countries around the globe currently. So that's just a little bit about the history of Girl Scouting. We could get a lot more in detail on the founder herself, Juliet Gordon Low. She was born October 31st, 1860, and she died January 17th, 1927, born in Savannah, Georgia. We really can't get into too much detail because there's a lot of great things to know about her. She was a pioneer of her time. However, I'm going to go over a couple of things that you may or may not know about her briefly, because that will help you understand some of the connections to certain programs, collaborations, and so forth. So for example, Juliet Gordon Low herself had a disability. She was nearly deaf. She began Girl Scouting when she was 51, which I know surprises a lot of us. She was a world traveler. She loved animals. She was also an avid artist. So she painted, she sculpted, she even did some iron work. And probably the most surprising thing to a lot of people, including myself, when I first learned, is that she had no kids of her own. So she began Girl Scouting at the age of 51, having had no children, and we see what the end result was now, right? So her birthplace was Savannah, Georgia. It remains a historic site to remember her by, and there's a small picture here of her birthplace in Savannah, Georgia. Every year, hundreds of troops from across the country make the visit there. So I mentioned that because I know I've had that question before. So if you or your troop are interested in putting together a trip, it's a little more challenging. Maybe you've done the in-town trips, the out-of-town trips, you want to go a little farther, then definitely a visit to the Juliet Gordon Low birthplace in Savannah, Georgia would be something to consider. They do have a lot of troops that they provide tours for. I know there's waiting lists, so just keep that in mind in case you're interested and want to plan something like that in the future. And so that concludes this slide about Julia Gordon Low. Just continue to look into her legacy if you and your girls are interested. Like I said, there's way too much information to include here today, but you can also find lots of games, poems, songs, skits, stories that you can share with your troop about her and make it a fun thing to learn about. All right, so moving along. The next thing that we're going to touch on regarding Girl Scout traditions are the Girl Scout special days, or what I like to call Girl Scout holidays. So I'm not going to get into depth in these because we just had a webinar not too long ago focused on Girl Scout special days, where we spent the whole half hour or so discussing each one of these in depth and also giving you some ideas of how you can celebrate that with your girls. So I'm not going to go into detail, but I did want to touch on them because they are pretty special for Girl Scouting. So we have World Thinking Day, which is February 22nd. We also have our Girl Scout Week, which is in March, and that week will include a Girl Scout Sunday, and Girl Scouting's birthday, which is March 12th. We also have a Leaders Day, which is in April. That's to recognize all of our fabulous leaders out there across the country. And then we have Juliet Gordon-Lowe's birthday, which is October 31st. And yes, of course, that's Halloween as well. You'll see some troops out there take a moment to celebrate her birthday and maybe even tie it into some of the festivities around the fall. So there, like I said, there's a whole separate OWL session that covers these dates in specific. So I encourage you to go and look for that on our council YouTube account. You can access it through our website. I'll refer you to that again at the end of tonight's session. I just wanted to highlight some of them briefly here. All right, so moving along, we know that the Girl Scout Promise and Law are pretty central to everything that we do in Girl Scouting. They have been our guiding light. So I wanted to start off with this. So we have the Girl Scout Promise and the Girl Scout Law there. They have changed throughout history. And you'll find out when you run into volunteers that maybe have been in Girl Scouting for a really long time, and when you're reciting the law, they tend to have different versions slightly, but the core has remained the same. And the Girl Scout Promise and the Girl Scout Law is how we summarize our values, the values that Girl Scouts represent. So these are really essential to our movement. Along with that, we have a logo, a trefoil, and pins. So these are also very traditional. You see them in a lot of places. This is our trefoil here, and this is our Girl Scout, what we call our faces profile logo. This is more reminiscent of the traditional Girl Scout pin. So these are pretty traditional. Keep in mind that there are certain things inherent in the logo that can be seen throughout Girl Scouting. For example, the number 3 is very common in Girl Scouting. There's 3 faces on the profiles logo. There's 3 parts of the trefoil here. There's also 3 parts of the promise. Circles are the other inherent symbol in our trefoil, in our friendship circles, which we're going to go over a little later. So just a little side note on that. All right, so the next thing we're going to move on to is the Girl Scout sign. So it's a very traditional symbol that we express usually when we start our meetings. And it's the raising of the 3 fingers on the right hand with the thumb holding down the pinky. That's the Girl Scout sign. It's very simple. Again, 3 fingers represent the 3 parts of the promise. Using this sign while reciting the Girl Scout Promise is a very traditional way that most troops will begin their meetings. On my honor is also something that you hear pretty often in Girl Scouting. I know I hear it a lot with adults as well when we're training or having meetings or camping. We'll say it's on our honor. And it also ties in to Scouting in general. So the phrase on my honor or Scout's honor is something you'll hear often in Girl Scouting. Adults and girls will both say that. When a Scout pledges his or her Scout's honor, they are basically pledging on the credibility of the Scouting pledge. So those receiving that pledge would feel as though the pledge is reliable, for example, trustworthy. So additionally, Scouts should recognize that they have put Scouting on the line, so to speak, that they have a reputation to uphold. And if they fail to keep their Scout's honor, then all other Scouts will suffer as well. So pledging honor or on my honor is a pretty big deal. Pledging the honor of a worldwide movement such as Girl Scouting is even bigger. So that's the tradition behind on my honor. Girl Scout Handshake is next. So the Girl Scout Handshake is pretty simple. I know a lot of times I'll do this in new leader training, and it's pretty new to a lot of people. It's something that we know is there in writing. We don't maybe practice as much as we should, but it's pretty simple. So the Girl Scout sign, you do the Girl Scout sign with your right hand, like we discussed earlier, and then you shake hands with your left hand. So it's pretty simple, just like that. So I encourage you to remind the girls of this at your troop meetings, have them do it with each other and shake each other's hands. It's a way of greeting each other. And then my favorite, the Girl Scout quiet sign. So we can't forget to mention the quiet sign. It comes in very handy. When you or a Girl Scout want to quiet a room without shouting, you simply raise your hand, and that's your hand with all 5 fingers up. And then everybody else should see that, raise their hand up as well. And once you raise your hand up, then our lips should be shut. So otherwise that doesn't work, right? So this simple gesture refers back to the Girl Scout law of courtesy. So it's important again to note that when one person raises their hand, everyone else who follows raising their hand should not speak. Eventually the room gets quiet. Trust me, it works really well. I know we use this with adult volunteers, and it works great with girls as well. It's just a matter of teaching them. So that's the Girl Scout quiet sign. And it's funny because I will be at other events or functions that are not Girl Scout related, but I want to quiet the room, and I will immediately go to the quiet sign because it works that well. So try it. All right, moving along, we have the Girl Scout motto and the Girl Scout slogan. So our motto is probably pretty well known. It's been around for a while, and that's the motto of be prepared, right? Girl Scouts are always prepared. The Girl Scout slogan is not as well, but let me go back to the motto. So in 1947, the Girl Scout motto to be prepared was explained as this: a Girl Scout that is ready to help out wherever she is needed. Willingness to serve is not enough. You must know how to do the job well, even in an emergency. These same ideas are true today. Now, when it comes to the slogan, the Girl Scout slogan, it is do a good turn daily, and it has been the same slogan since 1912. It's a reminder of the many ways girls can contribute positively to the lives of others. I call the Girl Scout slogan sort of old English for do a good deed every day. It's the same concept. So in fact, when girls are invested into Girl Scouting for the first time, their pin is placed on their uniform upside down so that they can earn the right to turn it right side up when they do a good turn daily or a good deed on their own. So this is our motto and this is our slogan. They've been passed down for many, many years. So it's up to us to continue to pass them on to our girls. Okay, so the friendship circle and the friendship squeeze, you may be familiar with these already. This is the traditional way that we end most troop meetings. Again, a circle is very symbolic in Girl Scouts. In this case, a circle represents the unbroken chain of friendship among Girl Scouts and Girl Guides around the world. And it's pretty simple, but it works beautifully. So it involves Girl Scouts standing in a circle, crossing their right arm over their left, clasping their hands with their friends on both sides. Everyone then makes a wish or shares something with the group as they squeeze the hand of the person to their left. That squeeze is passed all around the circle from hand to hand. And as they do, they also move their left foot forward just a bit. So eventually the idea is that the squeeze and the sharing go all the way around the circle. And at that point, they undo the circle. So that's the friendship circle. Very traditional Girl Scout way of ending a meeting. All right, so if Girl Scouts are known for anything at all, badges are probably it. Badges are the cornerstone in a lot of ways of our movement that has built on over 100 years of Girl Scouting. Badges cover so many categories and are more challenging for a girl as she gets older. So many badges. There are so many badges out there. A big part of what makes badges so fundamental to Girl Scouting is that they must be earned. So they're different from patches in that way. So a badge, you have to do a certain amount of requirements to earn it and then put it on your uniform. I like this quote that's here on your slide from Julia Gordon-Low. She said basically that a badge is a symbol that the girls have done the thing it stands for often enough, thoroughly enough, and well enough to be prepared to give service in it. So it goes with that adage of educate, not decorate. I wanted to take the time to show you a brief video for a moment. I know you guys have sat through a couple of slides on a lot of traditional Girl Scout things, so I wanted to do a little something different and show you a video of a moment in Girl Scout history related to a badge. So there's been a lot of badges throughout these 100 and plus years. They're always revamping, they're always changing. That's the way the world works. But I wanted to kind of take a moment and show you a older badge so you can get a look at it. Just bear with me while I pull it up. Here we go. All right, so that was nice and short. It was pretty brief. There's a little history of Girl Scouting. And that was, they called that the athletic badge. So if you go to that website, hold on, you got a preview of the one we're going to do earlier. Sorry about that. Okay, so going back to badges, if you go to that website that was listed there, there are a lot of other badges that if you're interested, you can show your girls. Earlier I saw one that used to be a media related badge where they'd actually have to go to a radio broadcast station and do certain requirements. We have similar badges now, but it's always cool and neat to show the girls what Girl Scouts in the past had to earn or required to do to earn a badge. So I thought I'd show you that. So moving along with our traditions, we've touched on badges. The next is uniforms. So we know that uniforms are a staple of Girl Scouts. It's definitely a tradition. They have changed a lot. The uniform is special because they show where a girl belongs and what she has earned. And remember, everything that a girl earns or shows where she belongs goes on the front of the uniform. So official pins, awards, things like that. The back is where you would put the fun patches, so to speak. And all of those pins and awards and badges are themselves very traditional. So while the look of the uniform has definitely changed, the Girl Scout uniform has always been special and it holds a sense of pride to all girls. You may even see a sort of Girl Scout fashion show where girls dress up in uniforms of the past during a special event, or I know I've seen that at parades perhaps. And there are a lot of vintage Girl Scout uniforms in our council. So if you're interested in getting your hands on something like that for your Girl Scout troop or for an event, just reach out to me or your nearest program center and we can help you out with that. That's a lot of fun. All right, so moving along after uniforms are ceremonies. So Girl Scouts has a lot of ceremonies. Their ceremonies are very unique because they mark special moments in a Girl Scout's life. They also create long-lasting memories. So you can see some of the most common ceremonies listed here on this slide. There are a lot of ways to do many different kinds of Girl Scout ceremonies. The most important thing to remember, though, is just to make sure and have the girls involved in the ceremony, both the planning and the ceremony itself. We don't have time to go into detail on these ceremonies tonight, but for more detailed information on Girl Scout ceremonies, please view our separate OWL dedicated solely on this subject. Again, all of our OWLs are stored on our website, and a couple of months back we did one specifically on Girl Scout ceremonies where it goes over what each ceremony is for, also gives you ideas of how to do that with your troop with some pictures and things like that. All right. Songs is next. So songs is very traditional in Girl Scouts. It's a long time tradition. You can see here by the picture of the Girl Scout songbook that I put there. There are songbooks in print out there currently that are sold, and there's also vintage songbooks out there. In fact, I run into quite a bit of volunteers that have their own songbooks that were passed down from their mom who was a troop leader or their troop leader, and they will just keep adding to it and using that. So it's a really special keepsake, and then they can use those songs to teach new girls. There are a lot of sorts of songs in Girl Scouts. There's fun songs, there's serious songs, there's camp songs, you name it. They don't take a lot of time to teach the girls, and trust me, they love to sing them. I can say that from personal experience, having driven some Girl Scouts back from Camp Miter Peak one summer. All they did was sing Girl Scout songs in the back seat. So we could really have a whole other session on Girl Scout songs, but since this webinar is all about traditions, I'm going to have you listen to one of the most traditional and simple ones, and you have the lyrics here on your slide that you can see. That's the Make New Friends song. This song is usually sung in the closing ceremony of a troop meeting. So you would do your friendship circle that we mentioned earlier, and then after that sing the Make New Friends song. Usually we only sing the first and second verse. You have the first two verses here on your screen, but it goes a lot longer than that. So if you're interested, just look up the lyrics online, and I challenge us all to keep adding and learning those verses. So I'm going to take a minute and actually show you how that song sounds like. Now, of course, it's going to sound different with your troop. It sounds very different when I sing it. Um, the clip I was able to get is a much better singer than me. So here we go. Okay, so that's it. That I got that from YouTube. It's pretty easy to get a hold of all of these songs with the lyrics and show the girls, teach the girls, do them together. The reason that version sounds different from what you might have heard, of course, is because she has the music and they're singing it in rounds. So they're singing it groups at a time. So one girl will start at one point, and then later on another girl will start, and then so it sounds really melodic and nice that way. It doesn't have to sound like that, but that's the Make New Friends song. There are a lot of other types of songs like I mentioned. Camp songs are really fun. So just feel free. The lady that was singing that one, her name is Melinda Carroll. She's very popular in the Girl Scout universe. She has been singing and recording Girl Scout songs for a long time. She attends national Girl Scout conventions. She brings her guitar. She sells her CDs. You can even buy or download her songs online. And she'll even do workshops sometimes where you can log in online and listen to her workshops of teaching songs. So her name was Melinda Carroll. All right. So from songs, if I'm going to try and go back if we have time and show you guys another song. It's a funner song. It's the alligator, I think they call it the crocodile or alligator song. And there's some girls that are teaching it. So I'll try and show you guys that here if we have time. The next that traditional item we're going to go over in our webinar are graces. So graces are very traditional in Girl Scouts. Graces, we usually say a grace before every meal in Girl Scouting and even before our snacks. So it gets the girls in the habit of doing so. There are, again, short graces, long graces, funny graces. There's even a silent grace, which is my favorite one. It's based off of a Native American prayer. So there's all sorts of different ones. Have the girls choose the ones they want to learn and do. You can even assign a different girl to lead a different grace at every meeting, her choice. So here are just a couple of the really popular graces with, I think, simple beats to follow. I am rhythmically challenged, so I like the easy beats. So there's the Addams Family, Bless This Food, Alphabet Grace. So I'm going to show you a group of Girl Scout cadets or seniors doing the Addams Family, in case you haven't heard it, but it's really popular. So it's short. It's 30 seconds or so. Okay, so that was fun, right? So that was the Addams Family Grace. If you give me a moment, if you just bear with me, I'm going to pull up that other camp song that I was telling you about so you can read that one. Okay. Uh, okay, here we go. This is the crocodile. All right, so that was the songs and the grace that we just heard. So I picked those in particular, those videos, because not only did you get a chance to hear them, but you could read the lyrics so that if you were to show that to your girl, they could follow along and read them and sing them as well. So that's a little bit of Girl Scout tradition. So the next topic on Girl Scout traditions are games and skits. Now, Girl Scouts is fun. There's a lot of fun activities to do. There's a lot of games also that Girl Scouts are known for. They're fun to do in your meetings or whenever you need to fill some time, or maybe the girls need a break. So I know when we're at camp, if dinner is going to be late, then we have all of a sudden an hour that we got to fill A Girl Scout game or a skit would be something that could fill that time. It's the time girls spend together doing fun things like games that unites them and forms bonding relationships. Some of the games include icebreakers, waiting games, ball and beanbag games, memory games, nature games, first aid games, signaling games. There's compass games, map making games, flag raids, treasure hunts, scavenger hunts, and of course there are a lot of campfire games. So I encourage you to definitely go online and look for some of these of your own, or reach out to one of us and we can help you um, get some of those for your troop that you can do. Girl Scout games and skits. The next are swaps. So I know somebody mentioned swaps is their favorite Girl Scout tradition. It's one of my favorite ones as well. SWAPS is actually an acronym. It's a very well-known Girl Scout tradition. There is a long history and a rich origin to SWAPS. They started long ago when Girl Scouts and Girl Guides first gathered for fun, song, and making new friends. To be brief, SWAPS is actually an acronym. There's a lot of different, acronyms that it's said to stand for, but the most popular one is the one you have listed there. So it's SWAP stands for Special Whatchamacallits Affectionately Pinned Somewhere. I've also heard it referred as something with a pin, sharing with a purpose. So there's a lot of different iterations of it, but Special Whatchamacallits Affectionately Pinned Somewhere is the common definition. And you have a picture on your screen of different types of swaps. There are so many swaps out there. This is just an example. Swaps are something that girls make, and they are keepsakes. So if they go to an event, so for example in our council we have the Daisy Day event, where we have that every other year where thousands of girls come together. It's a great time for them to make their swaps and then exchange those at the event. So I would make maybe 50 swaps of a certain type, and then when I go to the event, I'm prepared to exchange with other girls that also made their own swaps. So it's a great way to meet new friends, get in contact, and it's a really nice keepsake. A lot of people collect swaps. I have my own small collection. I can't collect all of them, but I do have some that I have collected throughout the years from all over. Swaps can be themed. They can be made from recycled materials. They shouldn't necessarily be expensive to make. There are a lot of very different variations. There's even a whole swap etiquette that has evolved around swaps. I put two examples of these etiquette rules on the slide. So for example, first, one of them is never refuse to swap with another person. Another rule, etiquette, is to avoid food products or anything that could really decompose or smell bad or attract bugs in your swaps. So those are just some of the etiquette rules surrounding swaps. If you want more info, again, feel free and look online. There's a lot of information on there. We usually offer a swaps class at our volunteer conference, which is September of every year as well. So it's likely, what makes it more interesting is the history behind swaps. So it's likely that the idea for swaps came from the potlatch ceremonies of the Native American tribes of the Northwest coast. It's believed that the very first swap was exchanged by Lord Robert Baden-Powell at a jamboree in 1924. Swaps are the perfect way to make friends and remember each other, and they're very traditional to Girl Scouts. Moving along are capers. So capers are very helpful, probably the most helpful Girl Scout tradition, I think. Capers are a way to randomly and in a fair way assign chores to girls. These can be chores for your meetings, chores for your trip, chores even that you need to have done at camp or camping. You would need to first determine what jobs you need done and then be prepared with your caper chart to assign them. Have the girls create their own caper chart. There's a lot of different versions of a caper chart. Does not have to be elaborate, does not have to be fancy, does not have to be expensive. Here are some examples. This, I always say this is my favorite. This is basically a tin of some sort. It's an empty tin with paper around it, and on each paper is a duty, and then the clothespins each have the name of a girl, and so it's a way to randomly assign duties to girls. This one is a chart. This is a spinning wheel, and this one I thought was really neat because you actually have some 3D visualization with the duty. This would work really well with the younger girls so that they may not read so well that it says dishwasher, but they know that definitely the sponge means that she's washing dishes or helping with the dishes. So caper charts can be simple or as detailed as you'd like. Have the girls create their own if that works. And also they work great with adults. We do caper charts at our volunteer conference as well for adults to make sure everything is orderly by the time that we leave. All right, cookies. This webinar would not be complete if I did not mention cookies. Cookies are a long time Girl Scout tradition. We're almost done going through our list, but we have a couple of more items that I want to touch on. Cookies is one of those. Cookies is essential to our traditions. For example, here you have the original cookie recipe. It only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ingredients, believe it or not. It's a very simple recipe, so something that some troops do during Girl Scout Week or to celebrate Girl Scout history or maybe before cookie selling starts is challenge the girls to bake their own Girl Scout cookies following this recipe and see how they taste. So that's something fun to do. Cookies are very traditional. There's a long Girl Scout history. I know probably every single one of us has been out in the community, and when we are approached by somebody that knows we're really in the Girl Scout movement, they will ask us for cookies, right? That's usually what the community thinks of. Um, our mission is to build girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. There's 3 C's in there: courage, confidence, character. A lot of times the community knows us for different 3 C's, which are cookies, crafts, and camping. So that's what I'm going to touch on really briefly. So here is the cookie slide. They have been around since 1917, so 5 years after Girl Scouting started. This is the first recipe that was distributed or sent to various councils in 1922. The earliest beginnings were in the kitchens and ovens of girl members with their moms volunteering as their technical advisors. The sale of cookies was the way to finance troop activities as early as 1917, and that started in Mistletoe. It was a mistletoe troop in Muskogee, Oklahoma. They baked their cookies and sold them in the high school cafeteria as a service project. And believe it or not, the first cookie boxes sold were 25 to 35 cents. Now, the Girl Scout Cookie Program continues to teach valuable financial literacy skills to Girl Scouts everywhere, as well as allowing girls to earn the money they need to do the activities that they want to do. Crafts is also another very traditional Girl Scout thing that we're known for, and we do a lot of crafting in our troop meetings out in the community. So here you have some examples of Girl Scouts sewing and canning. which is a very crafty activity. In fact, for those of you interested in canning, we're going to have a canning workshop at our volunteer conference in September. Let me take a quick break and see if you guys have any questions for me. Give me just a second. I see a couple of things coming on. Okay, so this is a good question. Somebody asked, other than Daisy Day, which is the event that I noted earlier, when is it a good time to exchange swaps? My girls love them. Yeah, I see that. I know there's lots of girls, they love the swaps. And I think one of the reasons they love them even more is because we do it so seldomly. It's usually at special events. So Daisy Day is the biggest event that we have where girls swap with each other, but it doesn't have to be the only event, definitely. So International Thinking Day or World Thinking Day, which is February 22nd. There's usually events around that troops and service units will do. And so girls will put together swaps related to the country that they're representing. And so that's another opportunity for them to swap. Cookie rally, if you have a cookie rally in your area, that's another opportunity where they could swap with each other, and that's a cookie theme, right? And every year the cookie theme has a different mascot, perhaps from a certain country. So then you see how you could tailor the swaps to that if you'd like. If you have none of that around you, then I would suggest that maybe talking to your nearest program center to see if you could put together an informal, very fun swaps workshop. So that's time for volunteers, for girls to get together and learn about swaps and maybe even do some of their own. So I hope that helps a little bit with suggestions. That's a really good question. Really good question. If your girls, if you ever get a chance to travel outside of outside of the council, or really anywhere, and you're going to go meet or see other Girl Scouts, it's that would be an appropriate time too. For example, when I go, I'm an adult, right? But I like swaps. So when I go to a conference of another council somewhere else, I will take some swaps to give to them. I don't expect anything, but to give to them as a keepsake, and it'll be tailored to our council. So it may be our council patch, or it may be a little postcard that says El Paso, because that's the city I live in. So those are just some examples where girls and adults can partake in swaps. I hope that helps a little bit. All right, moving along, outdoors. So outdoors has always been fundamental to Girl Scouting. So I want to touch on it here in just a little bit. The final C of the 3 C's I mentioned earlier is camping, or more generally, the outdoors. When Julia Gordon Lowe started Girl Scouts, there was an emphasis on getting girls outdoors. To this day, that remains a really important tradition in Girl Scouting. In some ways, it's even become more of a priority than ever before. Research continues to show that exposure to the out of doors for youth builds self-reliance, confidence, and overall good health. So needless to say, Girl Scouting has always and will continue this enduring relationship with the great outdoors. Closely tied to this tradition of the outdoors in our program is our inherent leave no trace ethic, kind of our own. Many times you will hear girls and adults, whether it's in a Girl Scout setting or not, repeat these words. A Girl Scout always leaves a place better or cleaner than she found it. And that's a very traditional Girl Scout saying. Everybody understands what that means. We have a big poster at our office with this saying to remind us as adults to leave a good example, be the role model, and leave a place better than we found it. And that all ties to the outdoors and getting the girls outdoors, respecting nature. So we have camp programs for our girls. We have outdoor badges for our girls. We continue to add more outdoor badges based on what the girls are interested. All right, I could go on and on about this topic, but I'm going to move on. Service. The final C, or we finished the 3 C's, but I think that there should be another C. It stands for community. There are other traditions threaded throughout Girl Scouting, for example, service. From the eras of world wars to the present day, Girl Scouts have always been involved in civic duty and service to our communities. Here we see 3 young Girl Scouts on your left there collecting peach pits for the war effort during World War I. This is a really popular picture. The reason they were collecting peach pits is they would provide them to their soldiers, to the soldiers overseas, military men and women, to use in their gas mask filters. And that it could possibly save their life. It could make a difference. This is epitomized, the importance of service is epitomized in the many program badges, patches, pins, and awards that the girls can earn today. I remain always impressed at all the pictures that we see of Girl Scout troops everywhere across our council doing great community service projects, take action projects, doing well for the community, getting the attention of the media for doing it. And all of this work and this ethic culminates in a Girl Scouts achievement of the bronze, the silver, and the gold award. You can find a lot more information on these awards online, or give us a call, reach out to one of us. But when a girl does patches, receives patches, earns badges, completes journeys, all of that is preparing her to receive the bronze, silver, and gold awards, which are the highest awards that she could earn. And they are all giving back to their community. They have components in which they give back to their communities in whichever way they are passionate about. So the tradition of volunteerism with Girl Scouts is pretty well known, and you can see it all over. The next slide I have is on patriotism. You will see a lot of information about how active Girl Scouts have and are in flag ceremonies, for example, supporting civic organizations, military men and women. Here we see some pictures, and there's an old, a vintage poster of Volunteers for Victory. And then here is a troop of Girl Scouts doing a flag ceremony. You will always see Girl Scouts proudly presenting our flags. In fact, troops are called upon to present the colors quite often, supporting our military servicemen and women, conducting even flag retirements for the community. So it's something we want to get out there more and more, because it is something to be proud of. Flag ceremonies is something that's also covered in the Ceremonies OWL session that I mentioned to you earlier. We talk about it a little bit more in depth. Moving along is inclusiveness. So when Julia Gordon Low began Girl Scouting with 18 girls in 1912, they consisted of culturally and ethnically diverse girls. She really broke the conventions of time, reaching across class, cultural, and ethnic boundaries to ensure that all girls, including those with so-called disabilities, had a place to grow and develop their leadership skills. Julia Gordon Low insisted that marginalized groups be included in the Girl Scouts when other organizations ostracized them. In fact, orphaned and disabled girls were actively recruited to join Girl Scouts. Members of Savannah's Jewish community, banned from other social clubs, were actively involved in Juliet's efforts from its beginning. The first African American Girl Scout troop was established in 1917. Troops were officially integrated in 1956 after an active internal campaign. The Senior Girl Scout Handbook has had a Spanish edition since the 1960s. So I thought that was pretty neat. Inclusiveness remains our most honored tradition, and you'll see it mentioned many times in our materials and exemplified in our program throughout. Girl Scouts is for every girl, and we stand by that. Girl-led, we're getting to the end of the session, guys. Thank you for being so patient. I have to end the webinar with a couple of these topics of girl-led, for example. When Julia Gordon-Lowe started it, she made it very clear that it was to be girl-led. That's how we succeed. She had the girls in mind and wanted them to lead. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that the girls do and decide everything, but that they are involved in the decisions of their troop. It's a sure way, definitely, to keep them engaged and interested in Girl Scouting. So here are some examples of girls doing activities where they are all in. Keeping the traditions alive. So as we end our session today, we have to ask ourselves, how do we keep the traditions alive moving forward? So it's a gradual, consistent work, but luckily it's a lot of fun, right? So we simply have to keep passing and sharing what we learn, what we love to do, what appeals to our girls in our many traditions, talking to them about why we are in this organization, why we volunteer, why we choose to dedicate our time to it. So keep the sharing going. Understanding the why behind a tradition also really helps to understanding and having and absorbing that meaning to it. For example, if I understand that what the three fingers of the Girl Scout promise stand for, I'm more readily going to remember that, understand it, take it to heart. Also, of course, we want to make the learning of the history as fun as possible. So there are tons of games and songs and skits out there in the journey books, in the Girl's Guide to Girl Scouting that we can use to pass on these traditions in a fun way. Even trivia games are fun for girls if you're wanting to teach them a little history. Short, quick trivia games could even work. And here is this is the very popular quote Julia Gordon-Lowe mentioned when she started the first troop in Savannah. I put that on there for you guys. And of course, don't forget that we do have the Girl Scout Ways badge for Girl Scouts brownies through ambassadors. So here is an example of, I believe this is the ambassador. Yeah, the ambassador one. So you'll see you have the 5 requirements here in the front. Requirement 5, they would choose one of these. And as the girls, of course, get older, they learn more of the traditions. It's a little more challenging. These badges are a great thing to do when you kick off your Girl Scout year or celebrate Girl Scout week or really any time. All right. And lastly, to end the session tonight, I wanted to remind us all that all of the OWL sessions are located on the website. Our website's www.gsdsw.org. Go to volunteers. You'll see the OWL heading there. And then once you click on that, you'll see them all listed. You can also, of course, go to this little icon here, the YouTube circle at the very top of our website. It'll take you directly to our YouTube account, and you can see a list of all of the ones that we have so far. And that concludes the session for tonight. It went a little longer than I expected, but like I told you all, I'm a Girl Scout nerd. I love the traditions and the history. We didn't get a chance to cover all of them by any means. There is a lot out there, but I tried to give an overall view or perspective of the most common ones out there. So I hope that helped. I am here in case you have any more questions, or I would welcome your feedback. I'd love to hear it. If there is something that I didn't go over that you guys want covered maybe in the future, or maybe a topic for an owl that you could really use, please take this time to let me know. I'd love to hear it. Any questions? Okay, I'm still here if you guys have questions. I'll wait till everybody hangs up before I leave. Thank you all for joining me tonight. It was great. I love to do these. I hope you get something out of them. Okay, well that concludes tonight's OWL session. Thank you for owling with us this month. Look forward to having you again in the future. Good night.